All right.
Hey, Jim Toscano here, and welcome to the Monday night live stream, Filling in the Grooves, episode 110. Hopefully, you checked out the interview with Simon Phillips last week, which is super fun. He was a great interview, really interesting and sweetheart of a guy to talk to. So humble, yet such a trailblazer of a player. I love the open-handed playing topic. Which, you know, if you go back to my interviews with Lenny White and with Billy Cobham, there's, you know, that interesting thread with all those guys. So definitely check out those. They're archived over on YouTube. And also, I just want to thank some companies: Prologic Percussion, Offset Pedals, Sabian Cymbals, Vader Drumsticks, Black Magic Designs for all my fun video switching and all that cool stuff, and Focusrite Audio for their help recently. And yeah, I don't have a graphic up there yet. And if you want to follow my my Kitco for like my gear setups, there's a QR code up there you can hit, or you can sign up for my mailing list, which is, there's a link in the description. And coming up in 2 weeks, I have Annika Nilis is going to be on the show, which should be super fun. And later in the beginning of September, I'm going to have John Riley on the show. Great jazz drummer, educator, historian, I would say, and player, really great player. He'll be on the show. And I also want to push one more thing before I jump in, which is my buddy Klaus Hessler's book, Taladiddle, which conical meets rudimental drumming. It's totally nuts. So it's like conical syllabic counting over rudimental drumming. Totally bananas, really fun. There's all this audio. It's very challenging to play through. So I've been taking my time through that. Yeah, man. So check out the upcoming stuff, and I'm going to jump into it. My guest tonight, I was following when I was, I don't think we're that far away in age, but I was following him when I was younger around the city and watching him play. I was introduced to him through seeing him with Michel Camilo back in I guess that was the late 80s, and seeing him play in that group. So that was my introduction to this guy. He's done a lot. One of his biggest gigs is a little band called Spyro Gyra. There's this really interesting group called MSM Schmidt that I want to ask him about, where the personnel reads like a playbook of the who's who of the music business. He's also played with Vinny Valentino, my buddy Adam Klippel, which we'll bring up at some point, and then also Bill Evans, Robben Ford, Larry Carlton, Chieli Minucci in special effects, and I think the special effects all stars, Osnoy, Chuck Lowe, Randy Brecker, Miles Davis. The list is huge. Elaine Elias. Some really incredible artists that this man has played with. And he runs a really amazing studio, which is now up in Rhode Island, called CliffSound 3.0. So he's not only a drummer and an educator, but also a producer and engineer, and runs a studio. Super talented guy. My guest tonight, Joel Rosenblatt. Yeah. Do you remember this track? I went down this rabbit hole today. This is probably going to get muted and edited out by like Facebook, but I'm playing it anyway. And it had a really badass drum intro.
Yeah, I remember that.
Joel, man.
I'm trying to remember how I got that session. I recommended, because I never met. That's Michael Schmidt record, which I never met him. We just email and then PayPal,
Yeah, he's in Germany, right?
He's in Germany. So, and the track list is great. Is Rick Fiorabracci on that?
That track is yes. Yeah.
I think Rick recommended me to do that.
Oh, really?
I think so. That was a long time ago.
I mean, dude,
but Dean Brown is on that.
Yeah.
There's a cool tune that's, I think, in 7 that's on that. Is very cool. I don't remember the names of anything, but
there's great tunes on there, and you're actually on 2 of his records. I think maybe
right.
one track on one of the other records. Simon is all over the other record.
That's right.
Yeah. Which I was like, oh wow. I go, look, Joel's on this, and I said, oh, and then it's Simon. So I guess Simon did some work for him too. But this record, you're all over this record, and I think it's really interesting stuff. I had never heard it before, and it's great. Like the personnel. On that tune, Brandon Fields, David Garfield, yourself, Kai Thompson, Mike Miller, Michael Schmidt, Rick Fiorabracci, and Walt Fowler on that tune. So
it's so weird to be with these guys and never. Rick I know very well, but it's just weird. The whole recording remotely is weird. It's. I was lucky. That's one of the sessions, I believe, which is rare for a drummer when we record. I was like one of the last ones on there, so I was replacing the MIDI stuff. So I got to interact with all the solos. Usually it's the other way around.
Right. It's so much better, right?
Yeah. It's very frustrating for me when I hear tracks, like after I send in the rhythm tracks and then I hear the final. And I say to myself, well, if I knew that was going to be there, I would have played something differently or something. That's the negative thing about recording remotely.
Yeah, for sure. I did a record over the pandemic with with a great buddy of mine that I grew up with, this guy Rob Glick, great bass player. And so it's like a fusion record. Bill Ware played vibes on it, and but it was bass and drums laid down first, and like a scratch keyboard thing. So the tunes evolved so far. I mean, there's a couple where I got to go back and redo the drums because I couldn't live with it. But it's like, it's so sterile, you know, when you're on there first. And it's...
Yeah. It's not really the sterility. It's just the total lack of interaction. I mean...
Right.
Yeah, and, you know, a lot of times these people are really... I mean, I'm sure you got this too, where it's like, okay, we're hiring you, you know, and there's a MIDI drum part on there, but, you know, do what you want to do. You know, do what you hear.
Right.
And slowly but surely, you start sending approvals, you know, MP3s. You know, I really missed that fill that was there, and and then you're just copping their track. You know, it's
right. Yeah, that's frustrating. Yeah, like maybe you could do it a little closer to the MIDI track, and then before you know it, right, you're writing stuff in the chart that was on the MIDI track.
Right, and it really gets bad when the guy you're working for is an excellent drum programmer.
Right.
Because, you know, they really, the drums sound great. Sometimes I say, like, I don't even know why you want me on here, because it sounds great. And, you know, when they take that much care in the drum part, they know what they want.
Right.
and when they've been listening to that demo for 2 months while they're doing everything else, it's going to be weird for them to hear something different.
Indeed. That is so true. Man, so remote sessions. So how much of that over the pandemic did you wind up doing? Did you get pretty busy with it? Was your studio in flux at that moment, you know?
Yeah, well, so what happened with me is, you know, the pandemic happened, the whole scene shut down. I was still living in New York. I had CliffSound 2.0
right
in New York, you know, and after a year of no work, and I started, you know, I moved up to Rhode Island. I was living with my girlfriend, and, you know, it was a forced vacation for a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, you know, there's other ways to live my life. There's other things that I could focus on. And it kind of turned a switch on me. And I said, you know what? Most of the gigs I do, I fly to now. And I'm doing sessions at my house, so my studio could be anywhere. And I said, you know what? I'm going to bail out of New York. That was a huge decision for me. I'm like bailing out of New York. I was subbing on Hamilton, and so I had to make the decision to let that go. Yeah. And all my 55 bar gigs, which I loved playing, and ironically, that's gone now anyway.
Right.
But I said, you know what? It's just like, I've been in New York for 45 something years. It's like, let me make a move. It's the last third of my life. There's no reason not to make a change.
Right.
So, but for that year, while I was living in Rhode Island, and I had a tenant in my house, like in my old place, I had a house, and kind of like this place, I had a separate garage that I converted to a studio. So I kept the studio and I rented my house. Okay. But whenever I had a session, I had to drive 2 hours back from Rhode Island and sleep on a fold-out couch in my studio, do the recording, and then come back, you know, and I did that for a year while I was getting this place built. This took a year and a half to build because contractors I couldn't get stuff, and everybody, COVID, everything's closed. It took forever and super expensive because I was gouging. And, you know, you remember the plywood situation. It was
right.
It was just incredible. It's very frustrating. But now this place is done. My house in New York is finally sold. And I just have a little more to do here. I have all my digital gear set up here, but all my analog stuff is not wired in yet because I got to figure out my patch bay. And then like we spoke about before, I'm getting a new computer. What am I going to need? How am I going to integrate all that? But I'm able to record now. So to answer your question, that's a very long answer.
That's all right.
I did as much recording as I could do, but it was difficult because I had to just drive to New York to do it every time.
Yeah. Wow.
And there were some. I mean, I'm not going to say I was super busy, but there were some that kept me from going crazy.
Right. Cool. And so as far as like setting up the new place, how, like, from a space perspective, is it similar to what you had before? Is it bigger? What do you have going on?
So my first studio I built in 2007,
Okay.
and wait, is that right? 2000? Yeah. Um, I had it designed by Larry Swist, who is a legitimate studio designer who did Bear Tracks, which is Beckenstein's studio, the Spyro Gyra studio, many studios. And that thing was a total gut job, no parallel walls, 500-pound magnetic doors, windows, it was just a studio.
Yeah.
And it was great. It sounded great. The drum room was live. I mean, it was pretty live. I mean, it really had good energy to it.
Right.
I ran into trouble when I was selling the house because nobody wanted to deal with that. I tried to sell it to a musician. I couldn't find anybody that had the money to do that. So I vowed when I was going to build this new place, I'm going to build regular rooms and these weird doors. So I'm going to build like a regular, beautiful space, and I'm going to treat the room. And there's a cat in Cleveland. I don't know if you know Mitch Zlotnick, Audio Mute.
I know the
that
name.
Company?
Yeah. Audio Mute?
So Mitch, I sent Mitch pictures and measurements. He did a whole CAD cam thing. And I mean, you can kind of see, I'll show you around a little bit.
Cool.
For all you people. So this is not wood here. This is all treated, and this is not stone.
Okay.
This is a product. And if we go into the drum room, so you can see there's more like this. And all this wood from this building that we ripped out, and we saved it and repurposed it. There's some drums up there,
oh, nice.
Some stuff I'm not using. I do have 16-foot ceilings, but it's much deader than my first place. Got it. Yeah. But I'm okay with that because there's the digital technology. There's so much plug-in stuff you can do. It's not. I don't personally. I mean, if I had the facility of a power station, that would be awesome. But that's really impractical.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not having any complaints about my drum sound yet. So
right. So if you're getting good sound,
at least not to my face. At least not to my face.
Yeah. They're sound replacing everything. You don't even know it, right?
Right.
It's like, who was saying that to me? I think that was Omar was saying, like, he's like, man, he goes, he's like, he'll give people sort of, up front, just say, listen, you can't sound replace my tracks. Like if I take the time and the energy and the my expertise to give you something really good, don't go sound replacing them because then it's not me. He's like, so he's kind of got I think it was Omar that said this. If it's not Omar, I apologize. But where he just, kind of tells cats up front, like, don't do that. I mean, I don't know how you might, I guess you might know.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, I'm not to the point, if somebody hires me, I give them what I give them. And if they sign off on it and they want to change the snare sound, to me, it's more about the feel than it is the sound. But I know what Omar's saying. I mean, I work very hard on sending like my stereo approval mixes, I EQ the crap out of everything and make it sound as good as I can. And I believe that this snare sound, tom sound fits tune. That's my opinion. But again, it's not my project.
Right.
So you can't be that married. You can't be that married to it. But I know what he's saying for sure.
Yeah. Cool. So I just wanted to also mention that on that MSM Schmidt records, not only the personnel are really good, but I mean, you're saying that you did all that stuff remotely. The drums sound great on that. They really sound good. So, I mean, that's a testament to what you're doing up in your studio. That I think it really sounds cohesive, first of all. I wouldn't have known.
Was there a date on that? Is there a date on when that was recorded? I wonder if that was the first studio or the second studio.
That one, let me just see, because I jotted down some notes about it. And I think,
Because that could have been
oh,
CliffSound
nice.
1.0.
Yeah. Yeah, wait, let me see. There's definitely a date over on the track on iTunes. Let me just see.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Period.
because both records are listed there. That one's 2007.
2007. So, wow, that could have been because I bought it was 2007. You know, that might have been at the first studio, which interestingly enough was the basement of my house in Yonkers, which was low ceilings and treated very, very similar to, I mean, very, very dead.
Gotcha.
But you know what? I'm sure when they got my tracks, they mixed them and did whatever they did. I mean, that's not my any of my mixes or anything. You know, I just
Right.
sent them the tracks and they did their thing.
Just stems. And do you send a reference also, like a stereo reference?
Yeah, I always do that so
Yeah.
they can plug it in with and just see if it makes sense. And I've gotten a lot of mixing gigs by just sending, like when I get tracks to do, I always ask, you know, send me a separate bass, send me a keyboard stem, send me a vocal stem, so I can, you know, zone in on what I really want to hear to make a good performance. And
Right.
then when I send it back, I mix the thing, I affect the vocals, I do all that stuff, and I've gotten mixing gigs where they say, man, you know, your MP3 sounds great. Will you do the whole tune? So
Oh, nice.
that's a little bit of a strategic thing as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's cool. I mean, I went down kind of a mixing rabbit hole with Simon Phillips last week. He was saying that, you know, he prides himself on being a really good mix engineer. So, but he was talking about how when he's that guy, drummer guy isn't at work that day. It's just engineer guy and producer guy. And he's like, sometimes he goes months without playing, especially, I mean, over the pandemic. You know, he wasn't touring. Obviously, nobody was touring. So, but he was doing a lot of engineering and producing. And he said there's stretches where he's not getting really to play any drums, and he's really engineer guy. You know, do you find kind of like having to balance that with owning a studio? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy recording musicians, and I mean, I like recording. My favorite time is when other cats are here and I'm recording them.
Right.
I love when my shit's done, and then okay, let's get the vocalist or the sax or whatever, and I get to see the magic, you know, because it's really, for me, it's a privilege when you get somebody, you know, you got a track, and then it's like, okay, take one, do it, your trumpet solo or whatever, and you see like a great player just make a beautiful statement. I mean, it's a privilege to be there.
Yeah.
And I love helping them, you know, choosing the right microphone for them, that they're happy, you know, they come in and they love what it sounds like. I mean, I just love that.
Yeah.
I love it. So and the drumming thing, I kind of like to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
For, you know, and I'm not so much into, you know, you're playing stuff from a long time ago, and you mentioned the Michel Camilo thing, and I was a different kind of player back then.
Right. I have questions about that.
Yeah. So I'm not hearing music as a competitive event like I did back then.
Right. Right.
You know?
That's a great way to put it, because that's sort of a question, you know, from the early days that we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting, like your career kind of runs the gamut of, I mean, if we go back to the very beginning with Pure Prairie League.
Wow. You've done your research, young man.
And like, man, like, you know, like I know those tunes. I mean, they were on the radio like when I was a kid, right? So like playing that is a different drum chair than the evolution of your career, right? I mean, that's really leagues away from even just a few years later with the Michel Camilo thing or Paquito de Rivera, where that sounds like two different guys totally, right? In a way. I mean, the feel is obviously there, but it's like you said, it's more like, competitive sports when you're playing on a trio gig where the demand is very high.
Yeah, those guys were very patient with me. So I got that Pure Prairie League gig because their drummer got put in jail for something. I think it was something having to do with like he wasn't paying his alimony or something, and he couldn't make like these a week of tour or something. And I got recommended by a guitarist. I think it was Jeff Peabar. I don't know if you know Jeff. He's a great guitarist. And so I was supposed to do like 7 days, and we had fun. And I ended up doing it for a couple of years.
Was he still in jail, or
before that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember. But I stayed on for whatever reason.
Yeah. Nice.
But for the gig before that, I was playing with Matt Guitar Murphy,
right,
from the Blues Brothers. And so that I was, I really learned about like the shuffle, and I was playing with, the organist was this cat Shelton Laster, who was like a real Hammond B3, old school, and Matt, it's super authentic, and I'm just like this, middle class white Jewish kid from Jersey playing that stuff. It was a real education. But the Pure Prairie League thing was the first gig because the music was very simple. It's really about feel.
Right.
And it's the first first gig where I wasn't, I could like make eye contact with the audience. I could smile, I was like, I'm not like working hard, like, okay, there's a 7/8 bar coming up and this and all that.
Yeah.
It was just fun and great guys. It was a great hang. And they were all like, they all had like 25 years on me.
Yeah. I mean, their hits
but they
were
liked
like
my energy. I was this young.
Yeah.
I was this young kid with some energy, and they kind of toned me down, like, you don't need to play that kind of fill there. But,
right.
It was fun, and I actually did a record with them. I do in fact, it's around here somewhere. I found I am on one record with them that never got released.
Oh, really?
But wait. I do have a document of me playing with them.
That's cool. Yeah. So did it not get released because of unforeseen things, or did they shelf it? Did the band break up? I mean, why did they not?
I don't know. I mean, it was like kind of a private label thing, and they never got distribution or something.
Oh, okay.
I don't really remember. A long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's kind of cool though. Like, having a little bit of the roots thing early on, right? I mean, where you're really a timekeeper and a feel, guardian. It's a different hat to wear, right? So, and that's pretty early in your career. I mean, that was like, what, 1980 or something?
Yeah, that was the early 80s.
Yeah.
And the reason I quit that band is because Weckel recommended me to audition for Michel.
Yeah.
So
wait,
that was like where I took a hairpin turn.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Interesting too is that I just want to jump back to like school days for a second. Yep. So you started out, you're playing trumpet. You go to make the switch. Your dad's going to make you give up your go-kart.
Right?
Because, you can't have both for whatever reason. I mean, that would be my dad too, and be like...
Well, he was worried. I was like and still am, like a super daredevil-y, I was going to kill myself.
Right.
When you're a little kid, you think you're immortal, and like, yeah, I can build a ramp there and jump that over the cliff. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be all right. Everything will work out.
So, yeah, so he was looking for any reason for me to, dangle a carrot for me to get rid of that thing.
I got you. Okay, cool. So you make the switch to drums, and that's kind of, I mean, you're, I guess, junior high or the beginning of high school when you switched to drums?
I was 13 years old when I got my first drum set.
Right, so 13, so that's like junior high, 8th grade probably or something.
Yep, exactly.
So you did the school band thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
I did. I was still playing trumpet in the concert band.
Right.
And I was playing jazz, drum set in the jazz band, the high school. And I had a really good jazz, I was one of the lucky people who went to a high school that had a great music program.
Right.
And the director, a guy named Harry Owens, who I'm still in touch with, lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. His main instrument was a drummer, and he really saw some talent with me and like cultivated that.
Nice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's just a luck thing, you know. It's a total luck thing.
I mean, in every good, story, and like you said earlier, and I say it all the time, every drummer has a different journey. Um, but along that journey, there's always good mentors, right? So it's like if you're lucky enough to have that mentor in high school that was like a great jazz band director that happened to play drums. I mean, that mentorship probably meant a lot to you. Testament to the fact that you're still in touch with him, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, I just saw him, you know, because he lives in there's a club in Charlotte called Middle C something, whatever. And so he comes every time. I've been down there a couple times, and I have another gig in October. He's going to come down. It's just great. I mean, it's I can't even imagine how it must feel to him to see that. And you know, another one of his students has done very well, Brendan Buckley.
oh wow,
That's also one of his students from a different high school. You know,
yeah.
he moved on, but so he's impacted a lot of people for sure.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, Brendan briefly studied with. Wait, do I have this right? Who did? I thought there was I'm trying to think of a drum teacher that Brendan and studied with that I talked to, but now I can't remember. But yeah,
Well, he was just at high school with I think it was just it wasn't like his drum teacher was just like a very inspiring music teacher,
yeah, for sure.
that ignited the flame, and then we take it where we're going to take it.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, those types of mentors again drive it home about music being first. And yes, you're a drummer, but you're a musician, and you have to function as a musician. Also as known as dynamics and interpretation and musical phrasing and all that kind of stuff. So in those,
well, I think a lot of that came late. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. That's cool.
No, I was going to say a lot of that came later. When I was just hanging on for dear life and just I was just having fun. I wasn't taking it seriously. I had a lot of natural talent, so it came very naturally for me to play. And so I was just doing that, and people were liking it and stuff. But I really didn't get to work on like being a better drummer and musician until I got to college.
Right. Okay.
High school was just like, this is super easy, and I went to Berkeley. The high schools, they compete. And I got an outstanding musicianship award. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm awesome. Let me just keep doing this. It's fun. But I was really coasting because I really didn't have a lot of competition then.
Yeah.
I mean, I was. So it wasn't until college where I was like, uh-oh, I gotta get busy.
Right. So that awakening is sometimes, like students that I've had where they feel like they're kind of the big fish in the little pond. And then, they go off to college and there's like 20 guys that are playing circles around them. And they're like, oh crap, now I really have to get my shit together.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And you did study with Ed Soph. Was that brief, like when you were at North Texas State, or is that how much of that college life was that?
I never went to North Texas.
Oh, okay.
And before Ed went to North Texas State, he taught one semester at University of Bridgeport. That's where I went to school.
Oh, cool. So I thought that there was like
a semester there.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it was just one semester, and then he left. And then I left school anyway, too. I mean, I only did 2 years at Bridgeport before I went out and was gigging and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. I had that a little backwards. I thought like you were at Bridgeport and then spent a year or something at North Texas State. Cool. So, and then also you mentioned studying with Randy Jones. And that having an impact on you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Huge. Randy, so I'll tell you a story. So I studied with Ed. All right, so I got to backtrack a little bit. I was pretty much self-taught in terms of my technique.
Okay.
And I was doing the Chapin book and learning how to play these phrases, but nobody was really paying attention to like how I'm holding the sticks or anything like that, because I could get done whatever I had to get done at whatever tempo I was practicing.
Right.
And when I started studying with Ed was it, and any students of Ed can vouch for this. He's really a mechanics guy.
Right.
And he's like, all right, well, you're sitting too high, and you got to bring your elbow in, and you got to change the fulcrum of all this. And he really was changing how I was playing. And you know, when you make a change like that, you kind of like regress, because now you're playing uncomfortably. It doesn't feel right, all that. So I was working on all that, and then he left. It was one semester, and then the Randy Jones. And Randy was a totally different teacher. Randy didn't care what you played, how you played, traditional grip, match grip, how high. All he cared, you want to close your eyes, got to swing.
Gotcha.
And there were some lessons where we didn't even play. We just went out to eat, and we talked about, like, what are you listening to, and what you should be thinking about. And that was the beginning of my schooling of musicianship.
Yeah.
Not technique.
Yeah.
That was great. I mean, I'm really grateful to him for that. And then I started doing gigs where I needed a lot of technique. So that was, it kind of went full circle, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That kind of, those kind of lessons, I've brought this up before, but I took a couple lessons with Victor Lewis, and all we did would play quarter notes on the ride cymbal, or talk about quarter notes on the ride cymbal, and kind of just talk about swing. And maybe we didn't play at all and just talked about musical ideas. And maybe we played, but it was really just throwing the stick at the cymbal and just letting this ride cymbal breathe. And like those are really important. I look back to those couple of lessons of
that's
yeah, man.
No, it's funny you say that, because Randy would just play quarter notes, and then he'd give me the stick. Now you play quarter notes, and it didn't sound the same.
Right.
It's like it's so, there's such a, Erskine talks about that too. It's like just making the quarter note swing. You can look at it on paper. You give that to anybody, to 20 different drummers, and they're all going to have a different feel.
Yeah.
And it's and what is swing? I mean, some people like person A's swing and not person B's, and it is an expression of individuality.
Yeah, totally. I remember.
I tell students. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, man. Go.
I was going to say, I tell students, when they're coming to me, and they say, "Am I doing this right? Or am I doing this wrong?" I say, there is no wrong. When you're making art, there is no wrong. There's no right or wrong. There's choices. Right. You're going to make a choice. What you don't want to do is like rush or drag or anything like that. I mean, that's, but in terms of what you're playing, it's a choice. And if people will hire you because of the choices you make, and that's really what it's not a right way to play anything. It's all up for interpretation. Right.
On JoJo Mayer's Secret Weapons DVD, he did the hand technique DVD.
Yep.
There's like a little clip in the very beginning where he's throwing garbage pails out of a window, and he goes, if a guy throws garbage pails out of a window and he gets the exact sound that he wants, who's to tell him that how he's throwing the garbage cans out the window is wrong or right? He's like, if what you're doing gives you the sound that you want, or it's satisfying the music, then who's to say that that's right or wrong, right? So there are some choices might be ergonomically better for you in the long run, and maybe those are things that we learn about technique as we go. But I think you're right. Like, if you're producing the sound that you want, who's to say that your fulcrum is wrong? You know what I mean?
Right. And the other thing is when whatever a teacher's talking to me about technique, and they could be the best player and the best teacher, whatever, but you got to take everything with a grain of salt, because they're passing on what's working for them, right, for their physiology, how their bones are, and how they're, everything. And it may not apply to you.
Right.
You might, take 30% of that, and then take 30% of somebody else's. I mean, there's no one way. Nobody has the secret bullet.
Right. Yeah. That is true, man. And like, there's especially, I feel like old school guys like Chapin and Gruber, like there would be, vicious discussions about differences in technique, where people still will talk about like, I don't understand what Freddy Gruber was trying to say ever. And then there's other people, like if you talk to Weckel, Dave is like, he understood where Freddy was coming from. It took a little while, but he understood it. And it's, it's that kind of thing where, I think, like you said, you have to take a little from this guy and a little bit from this, and you become the player that you are by taking those influences. Nobody's going to carbon copy anybody, hopefully. And
right.
Yeah, so definitely, man. By the way, before we jump into, more of your history, I just want to say hello to, like, there's a few people in the chat that we just want to say hello to real quick, before the chat gets long. But let's say hello to Anthony Casina right out of the box, first guy in. And he actually asks about you studying with Gary Chester. So when was that? And maybe just talk about your experience.
Okay, so that was, let me think about this. I did that because Weckel was studying with him, and
right.
That was that's got to be in the maybe 1980, 81, something like that. I remember because I was just starting to tour with Matt Murphy. So here's the thing about Gary Chester. I got a lot from him, but I didn't get I didn't get any kind of musicianship from him. Right. What I got from him was independence, concentration. Yeah. I mean, the stuff that, if anybody knows those systems, I mean, they're difficult.
Yes.
So if you can get that down, the singing thing, and all that to center your click and all, I mean, it was great stuff. But again, these are the building blocks that you take, and then you have to make them musical. And I mean, I remember him telling me, I said, I got one of my students, he's playing down there. He can do all my stuff. I mean, he's been studying with me since he's 8 years old. And I'm like, I'm terrified because this is early on my lessons with him. And I was terrified to hear this kid because he was going to be ridiculous. I went to hear him play, and it was the most mechanical sounding thing. It had held no interest for me. So that was like a little light bulb there. It's like, okay, so this is great stuff, but I got to be careful how far I take this.
That's a good point, because New Breed.
Again, that's just what I'm saying. Every teacher, like, you can get something from them, but it's dangerous to become their to be that's your only influence.
Right, yeah. The whole idea of like becoming a protege, so to speak, can be a dangerous thing. Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, I think everybody should do some of New Breed along the way, because it's gonna offer that independent. I mean, that was the first time I thought of like, oh wow, riding on double hi-hats while I sing and play bass drum melodies. It was like, oh, that opened my mind to like a whole nother thing. Right. After like doing the Chapin book, right? So
the thing that people don't do with the New Breed, and that's what was great with studying with Gary live, is he was a real policeman about you singing.
Yeah.
Because he, like when you stopped, he told you got to keep, because you're singing, but then it's very easy to internalize that, and then you're not. It's very important to move that muscle. It's a fifth limb. That's the way you got to look at it. It's a diaphragm. It's another muscle. You can't think the click. You can't be just thinking, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to actually say those words, and it's a fifth limb of independence, and that's how you develop your internal clock.
Yeah. Well put. That's true. And then also, learning to sing, even, like studying with Charlie Persip and John Stubblefield at Jazzmobile, and they would make you sing the head of a standard.
Yep.
So you'd sing, you know, whatever it was, Billy's Bounce or something, and you'd be singing the melody while you're keep playing time and trying to comp with your own singing. So it's such a key thing, man.
Well, that's where you have a musician drummer versus a timekeeper.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah, you got to know the tunes. I mean, especially when I'm soloing. I mean, I'm always thinking about the melody. You know, and the form. I'm changing sound sources for the bridge and all that. I mean, I'm really trying to mark the form of tunes. It's very, very important.
Yeah, for sure. So Anthony Cucina, good question. Rodney Ballard over in Nashville,
Hi, Rodney.
saying hey, and congrats on the new CliffSound, Joel. Very cool.
Thank you.
Let's see, Anthony Cucina and Joel, what are some of your recommendations on setting up a home recording studio? Which actually, Anthony Cucina is one of my coaching students. So early on, right, Anthony, in the pandemic, we got him an interface, like a Focusrite, you know, something affordable, like a 18i20, and we set up microphones, and we got him on a 4-camera setup because he teaches. So he's he's a little bit ahead of the curve. But what are your recommendations on that topic?
Well, I'm very behind the curve in the video thing.
Right.
But I've been recording for a long time. You got to have a clean signal path. I use my brain now is an Antelope Goliath, which is it's a 16 preamp, and it's got onboard processing and stuff. It feeds my Q mix. I use ADK mics a lot. I have a great relationship with them.
Yeah.
I still use like SM. You got to have. There's no secret. You got to have your drums tuned. You got to know how to make your drums sound good. Okay, and then you got to know where to put the mics. You got to start with flat, and then just understand EQ and compression. I mean, it takes time. There's so much tutorials on YouTube now. I mean, there's no excuse for not at least getting close.
Yeah, for sure.
But you got to spend a little money on gear, but I think the main thing is you got to know how to tune your instrument.
Tune the instrument and treat your room so that your room sounds good. Because if your room is, all hard surfaces, or the floor is tile, or, there's certain things you have to do a little bit of sound treatment just to get things where you want it.
What you don't, if you're in a square room like many people are, like a live room is not a bad thing. What you don't want is that flutter, that sheetrock flutter,
right,
which happens when you have parallel walls.
Yes.
So if you just treat one wall to stop the reflection, and then maybe some corner treatment. Generally, the corner treatment in the live room is not so important to me, as important as it is in the control room.
Right.
When you're trying to mix and get a good sound and make it accurate, you know what I mean? And then where you set up the drums in the room, you don't want the drums in the corner. You maybe want them in the center. Do you have enough height for the overheads?
Right.
I mean, but I don't know. It's been trial and error, and me making very small moves over years and years and years, to the point where I don't even know. I don't remember what I used to do, and it's just if it doesn't sound good, I change something.
Right. What you used to do becomes irrelevant anyway, right? So it's like, as you grow and your ear gets better and you get your room tuned and things are sounding the way you want, what you used to do is completely irrelevant, especially you're on studio number 3. Yeah,
and that's the thing, is I'm still getting used to this room, what my monitors sound like in this room. From my first client, I got a really great compliment. I mean, I sent out my first set of tracks, and the guy came back and said, when I sent out my tracks, first I send a stereo approval mix with reverb and stuff, and they can plug it into their template, and they like the performance. Now they want like separate kick and the toms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So when I send them that, I take all the gates off. I take all the reverbs off. I do leave EQ because I want to have control. This is what the drums sound like, and I phase correct the snare and stuff.
Right.
when they put everything up, there's no fade. But the first set, you send them off into the world, and you hope everything's cool. I said, let me know everything's fine when you get it. He said, your drums, I just put up the faders. They sound fantastic. The only person I don't have to mess with, that I've never had to mess with, is Weckl. And that's a huge compliment.
Nice.
And I was asking him, like, how's the bottom? And, he said it's good. So I'm on the right track. So.
Yeah. Weckl's another one of those guys where his sound is so consistent, and he's been doing it in his studio for so long. And his
he's
EQ.
The first guy. He's the first guy that wanted to get the studio sound live. I mean, he blew all their minds.
Yeah.
With the Electric Band, and before that, the Bill Connors thing. I mean, he was bringing his own PA. He took control over his sound.
Yeah.
So much. And that changed. That was such a change. I mean, we never thought of doing that, or did want to do the work of carrying a PA and all that stuff.
I think it was Night Sprite, right? That he was playing with in the early days, and I saw him in a little club in the city, small hole in the wall, and he had 2 PA speakers, one on each side of his kit, and his mixer, and his drum sounded huge and great.
Right.
And I was like, what the hell is going on? Yeah.
He really changed everything. And so again, like you said, he's been doing it a long, long time. He knows how to get good sounds. And I send him some stuff once in a while. I get a little feedback from him. And,
oh, nice.
No, I definitely check in with him.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to be a fly on the wall for the discussion about recording between you two. That would be fun.
We start talking about cars and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it funny how many guys are drummers and that drive, that have cars, like fun, cool cars?
I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of us, and there's a lot of bikers. I'm a motorcyclist too. I mean, Weckl's not into that, but lots of motorcycles, lots of drummers are. I don't know, man. I don't know why. I love the bike to clear my head. The one thing about being on a bike is you're not listening to music and stuff. I'm just into the ride, and I just I'm a little ADD.
Right.
Like I'm thinking about so many things, and that's really an escape for me.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Simon was just talking about driving also when I had him on the show last week. So he's got a car, and Dave gets on the track. He's got the simulator in his house. But
he's way into it.
Yeah, way into it for sure. Cool. Nick Capullos checking in. Hey, Nick, great drummer from Long Island. Nick hanging with us. Larry Rizzo hanging out. He said, hey, Joel, where was the most interesting, unforgettable place that you ever played?
Boy, that's a tough. There's so many. And it also depends on where you are in your life. Like what I thought was super interesting as a 20-year-old,
is different.
I would say, in the early days of Spyro, we traveled to the Far East. Cool. Thailand was an amazing place. We did some USO shows in the Sinai Peninsula where like camels were going across the stage.
Oh wow!
That was pretty wild. I don't know. It's weird. We travel so much, but usually our schedule is so tight, we don't really get to see a lot of stuff. But like, I'll remember the camel thing for the rest of my life.
Right.
I'll remember like a meal that we had in Alaska for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it's I'm really fortunate. I and continue to do all that stuff. Yeah. But no one place really stands out.
I hear like a lot of guys will say, like Stanton and Garibaldi and Adam Deitch, like they all have mentioned Red Rocks as being like a really memorable venue. So, and depending on the genre that people are playing in, right, where those types of venues are going to show up. So,
yeah, I have not played Red Rocks, and my career, I have not had the opportunity to play those. I never really played with a pop act where I'm going to be doing, or like a Chick Corea where it all might as well be a pop act. I'm doing like clubs, and which actually I love the club thing because it's intimate and I dig the connection with the audience. But yeah, I mean, I've done the Hollywood Bowl, the Playboy Jazz Festival. I mean, I've done some good things, but it's not like I'm touring all the time with playing 50,000 seat and
Right.
pyro and smoke and all that stuff.
Yeah, like all of my all my friends that are like country guys, the country drummers, they play all those enormous arenas with all the pyrotechnics and like Rich Redmond, great guy.
Yeah.
You look at his drum cam footage and you're like, holy crap, it's like an entire football field of just, humans. So it's pretty insane.
Listen, it's great, and it would have been nice. But look, I get to play music for a living, and I'm just grateful for that.
100%, yeah. And you have to be true to who you are as a player, and I think playing the type of music that your interest lays in lends itself to certain types of venues, and I think anybody that's really has integrity and plays the music that they love is okay with that, is going to be more than okay with that, playing where they play. So
totally. I mean, the only thing that's, as I'm getting older, the physical toll.
Yeah.
Like when 20 years ago, like me schlepping my drums upstairs or down to like this speakeasy to play with some killer musicians. I mean, I was all about that. Now I'm just like,
pack line.
It's the physical thing, and the traveling thing is really rough. It's harder to get to the gigs now and deal with that, and that is something that I never really was thinking about until like the last few years.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So funny. Like I try to make sure that everything has wheels now. It's like that's all you think about is like, okay, can that roll? If it can roll, then it's a good thing. All right, let's see. John Gill saying hello from Oneonta, New York. Yo, John. John, I just realized I owe you a phone call back. I had COVID a week ago. Well, 2 weeks ago now. I got really sick. And so for like 10 days, I could not leave my bed. So anybody that I missed that week with phone calls and emails, I apologize, and I will get back to you. Have you had COVID? It sucks.
Yep. Yeah, I was one of the unfortunate ones that had to step off a tour. I got in the middle, and I got stuck in Cincinnati for 4 days. And
shit.
It's the worst scenario. Well, the worst scenario is being out of the country.
Right. Yeah, that would be worse.
That's the worst scenario. So I had to leave the tour, so I lost the bread of the tour, and then I'm paying for a hotel.
Yeah.
And I finally said, I was in Cincy, which is a 10-hour ride home. I said, I'm not staying another night. I'm just going to rent a car. And I drove back to Rhode Island with COVID.
Oh, man.
I turned the car back to Hearst, and I said, you need to fumigate this car. And I came back, and I gave it to my girlfriend, and we COVID-ized together.
Wow. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but it sucked. It sucked big time.
Yeah. This was the first time I had gotten it, which was 2 weeks ago, and it kicked my ass. I got the whole respiratory, like everything, really kicked my butt. And the funny thing is, I went out to see one of my students perform, a young student. She's in here in the chat. We'll get to her in a moment. And she, I went to go see her band play and took off the mask to do pictures. And Bernard Purdy came. So I was sitting with Bernard and his wife. They didn't get it. I was like, what do you have, a bulletproof immune system, Bernard? So he's fine. I got it. My student got it. And probably half the people in that room got it. Yeah, so.
Yeah. It's on the rise, apparently, so.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It's really, it's so unfortunate. But that's the times we live in.
Indeed. Lindsay McDonald hanging with us. Very, very cool. Let's see. Lindsay said, Tommy Igo. I forget what we were saying at the time, Lindsay, so I apologize. That was probably way earlier in the interview. Lucia saying hi, checking in. My student that I just saw play the other night. My sister's checking in, Patricia. Uh, my buddy Dave Clive from Dave Clive's Gretsch Museum in Brooklyn, checking in, and he said that he's seen you play many times with Michel Camilo, and he saw you play with Spyro Gyra at the College of Staten Island. Really? I didn't know you guys played CSI. And he brought all of his drum students to the show, and they loved it. And because he's a drum teacher from CSI for 20 years. So he got to see you guys play there.
What year was that, you think?
Dave, what year was Spyro Gyra at CSI? Let us know in the comments. Steve Balgoyan hanging with us from Colorado. Let's see, who else? 7th Avenue South. I remember that club. Played there many times I had a band called Point of View, which now thinking back to it, so it was a fusion band. We were playing around in the late 80s, early 90s around the city. 7th Avenue South was on our little 55 bar, 7th Avenue South, Vigionis, like all those rooms, right? Village Gate downstairs, all the clubs. I realized today, I was like, oh, our band leader must have been influenced by Spyro Gyra, because the name of the band was Point of View, and the first track on our first album was called Slow Burn. And I was like, wait a minute, were you just ripping off titles from Spyro Gyra? Like, what the hell? Let's see, who else? And then we'll jump back into it. Oh, Spyro Show early 2003 at CSI in Staten Island.
That was tour. I left Spyro in 2004. So that was kind of at the end of my time there.
Okay. Yeah, I have a question about that. We'll get to that too. Cool. All right, we'll check back in with you guys in a little bit. So keep the questions coming in the chat. The questions are good. So we know that you got recommended for the Pure Prairie gig by a guitar player, I think you said. You got the blues gig with the dude from the Blues Brothers.
That was from my sax player, my roommate, Fred Vigdor.
So that's cool.
Fred is the sax player in Average White Band now.
Oh, cool. All right, nice. And then, actually, my buddy Brian Dunn played drums with them for a time.
That's right.
Do you know Brian?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Brian's a great guy.
You know, I am co-producing. I have ties with the Hall and Oates organization.
Oh.
Through Brian, and also Porter Carroll, who is one of their singers and percussionists. I'm co-producing his original project, which I'm very proud of, and it's killing. We're actually playing at 54 Below, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday.
Wait,
his show is fantastic.
What date is that?
Let me look at the calendar. Hold on. It's whatever Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but...
not this Wednesday. So that would be 8, 9, 10. 17th. So it would be 17th.
Yep. It's killer. Great band.
Nice.
And he's an awesome singer and human being. So anyway, hi, Brian.
Nice. Hey, Brian, if you're in the chat, say hello. He did the show a while back. It was definitely a fun hang. We knew each other because we both subbed in the same Club Date band. So we would, from time to time, run into each other, or knew the same people in kind of that organization. And then I was playing in that Club Date band again after being out of it for a while. And then I had to sub it because my daughter got married. So Brian played drums at my daughter's wedding. So I said, Brian, your claim to fame is playing with Hall & Oates and playing my daughter's wedding.
Right.
That's
one thing, cats in New York or anywhere, I mean, there's no shame now. It used to be kind of like, we keep undercover if you're doing the wedding gigs and stuff like that. But there's, especially in New York, if you're in a music city, the bands are freaking killing, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's not a chore, man. It's fun. So everybody does everything now,
100%. I mean, even when I was a kid and I first started doing weddings, which Brian did the same thing. Like, he started out, heavy in the wedding scene. I know you.
We all did.
You spent your time there too. I remember being on like a heavy Jewish wedding gig, and Tom Bones Malone is playing trombone, And I'm like, dude, man, I go, well, what are you doing here? I was like, you played with Zappa. I was like, I'm like a green kid, I don't know. And he goes, same thing you are. He goes, I'm making money. I was like, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
100%. So you run into a lot of cats, especially like you said, like bigger cities in New York, LA or whatever. If you're doing club dates, you run into a lot of great musicians that are there for the same reason. Everybody's working, man.
Absolutely.
Cool. So so you get you're kind of moving. You go through the college thing, and then you were saying that Dave recommended you for the Michel Camilo. Now, is like the first step into sort of the heavy jazz arena?
Yeah, I would say that's the gig that put me on the radar of drummers.
Yeah.
Because obviously Dave was like, holy, who's this new guy, Weckl, and everything, and everybody knew the Michel Camilo gig.
Yeah.
And when he went to do the Chick gig, people were like, well, who's this new guy playing with Michel? Like, it had to be somebody, and so people were coming to Michel's, the whole deal. And
yeah,
that's what kind of started for me. And playing with the amazing Anthony Jackson, I mean, holy crap. I mean, I was, speaking about club dates, I'm playing like cover tunes of Shaka Khan tunes, that Anthony's playing on. And then here I am in the same room with the guy playing. It was heavy. It was a lot to process. I got definitely.
That dude is just, man, for bass players, he's just so, the feel, obviously all of the technical stuff is incredible, but his feel is so ridiculous. There's that great performance of him with Gad, with Michel Petrucciani, and they're playing A-Train, like a real, he's playing like this pedal thing where he's just pedaling on the same chord for a long time, and Gad's starting to solo, and what he's playing is just so in the pocket and just so killing. I love his playing, man.
You know what he told me? Because I would talk to him about like your time and your pocket is so amazing, and he said the pocket doesn't come from the attack of the notes; it comes from the release. Very deep. It's like, and if you listen to any of those Steely Dan stuff or the Donald Fagen stuff, and you listen to his parts, where the notes end everything is meticulous. But he said it's the release that sets the pocket, which is wild.
Wow. That's an interesting way to think of it.
Yep.
Very cool. See, kids, we get a lot of knowledge here on the show. Holy crap. Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those guys that, I was talking to Simon about him off camera. We didn't really get into it, but with the Hiromi trio thing, oh my God. It's just so killing, man. And, every time you hear that guy play, it's just so beautiful. It's just, I know his health isn't great and definitely want to give a shout out to him.
Sure.
But, man, what a beautiful guy. Yeah, man. By the way, we should give a shout out to Don Famularo if you happen to be listening. We're thinking about you.
Yep.
Mr. Famularo, we love you. So the drumming community coming together for drummers.
I did something that, he inspired me. You probably saw that Come Together thing for the Hunger, Why Hunger organization.
I was very deep in the early production of that thing.
Yeah, so he got me involved in that, which I was grateful for. So, yeah, I hope Dom's going to be okay, definitely.
Yeah, man, we're thinking about you. By the way, the whole Drum Together thing, it's cool that he asked you to do it, and there's a lot of really great footage. I mean, obviously a lot of guys played on that.
So many guys.
So many guys. But I don't know if you've ever seen the promos that Chad Smith did. Chad filmed a bunch of promotions for it, and they're hilarious because like he's supposed to be reading a copy, but he's getting it all wrong, and he's just like, it's like, he'll say something about, and we're raising money for hunger, and it's everybody drumming together something, and then you hear beep, and he's like fuck, and he's like screaming, and then it goes back, and so they made this great promo where he's just dropping F-bombs every 3 seconds and just tearing it up. Yeah, he's a funny dude.
Yeah.
So my question is, so how did you get on Weckl's radar, that he asked you to, you know, that you should audition for Michel? Like, were you guys already buddies, or what was going on?
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, I mentioned a while back how when I really got to work was in college. You know, the big fish in the sea. I had one very big fish when I got to college named Dave Weckl.
Got it.
We became good friends, and we actually were roommates for a year and a half.
Mm,
And I used to go to see Michel all the time, and you know, and Michel kind of knew me, never heard me play, but knew me as Dave's friend.
okay.
And when Dave said, "Listen," he told Michel, "You should just check out Joel," and Michel called me, and I went. You know, I had 10 days to prepare. You know, the interesting thing about that is I'd never seen any music for it, but I knew all the tunes because I'd seen them a million times at Michel's or Seventh Avenue, whatever.
Yeah.
And when I got the charts, I mean, other drummers might find this also. Like a lot of times people send charts, but the way they carve up the bars sometimes doesn't make sense phrase-wise.
Right.
So I end up moving my bars, you know, and so it makes sense. So when I was looking at Michel's stuff, it made no sense to me. So I just did it from memory and hoped like he wouldn't say take it from bars 72 because I wouldn't even know where that was.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like, you know, for sure when we chart things, you know, we're charting in a certain rhythmic or, you know, what makes sense phrasing wise to us. And and I remember looking at some charts from Gonzalo Rubalcaba and thinking like, I can't even understand where this starts or ends. Like that would be another guy where you'd have to like rewrite everything, I think, in a way. Really interesting.
That's definitely a thing is, you know, for any cats who are listening, especially now with all the MIDI charts people put out and like all these unmusical drum charts that don't have dynamics or any kind of length of notes or, you know,
Right.
you gotta make your own charts. And look, we got it easy. We don't have to worry about like melody and chords and all that stuff. We just have to figure out the phrases and the dynamics.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to have to be like a math professor counting through music. So I just want to think about this is what makes sense to me. And it's just repetition. You know, the amazing thing about having a DAW, whenever I get stuff to learn, I put it in there and I loop it. And I just loop it until it just becomes second nature.
Yeah.
You know, back in college, I had the cassette player and I'd slow it down and have to rewind and you know, I mean, it's so easy. You can loop, take a 16-bar phrase and play it for 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So much easier for you guys now.
You know, it's so funny. Like when we think back to when we were transcribing stuff, and I remember like even trying to slow Buddy Rich down like on the turntable to 16, and it would be like you're trying to listen to it, and then you know like so kids now like when you're teaching drums to these kids, it's like now we can take the drum track and isolate it, you know, with that thing Moises, which I use with some of my students. You can isolate tracks, you can loop tracks, slow it down, it doesn't change the pitch. I mean, there's so many tools now. But like when we were trying to transcribe stuff, like you said, we would just be like rewind, forward, rewind. Well, like if it was a cassette, forget it. Yeah, crazy.
The only thing I will say about the old school way of doing it is, you know, you really had to absorb the entire performance, not just the drums, but everything that was happening there. You got a cassette of a performance, you're trying to learn what's going on.
Yeah.
So when you isolate the drums, you're just hearing the drum part. And you can learn all that technique, but you got to, context matters. So, you know, like if you're listening to a cassette, like this is what me and Weckl used to do. We'd smuggle our cassettes in there and see Steve Gadd play.
Right.
And we're hearing him play in context. Like this, why did he play that? You know, he played it because Warren Bernhardt played this or Anthony Jackson played something, you know, so you get the context. And with a lot of these YouTube people who are playing with these amazing play-alongs, you know, after 5 or 6 run-throughs, you it's memorized. You know what the solos is going to do, you know, everything, and it's all about just your performance.
Right.
And it's completely unrealistic. because if you're on a gig, it's not going to be that somebody's going to play something else, and you're going to have to react, and you got to build those chops, and that only happens when you're playing with humans.
You have to get in a room and play with actual human beings.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you got to know what it's like to play with sucky musicians, so you can overcome that.
Right.
And the best scenario is when you're the worst player in the room, where they pull you up and you have to rise to that. That's when you really grow.
Yeah.
And so there's no substitute for the whole thing about music is it's interaction. It's expressing yourself with a group of people, having a conversation, and then the audience gets to hear the conversation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what nationality the audience is, because it's a universal language. It's pretty incredible.
And the cool thing with music is it's the one art form that it's not actually tangible. I mean, it's
right.
It's entering here and leaving here, or hopefully staying here, and it's like those moments, they happen and they're gone. I mean, I know we record, but it's like just being in the room and seeing it happen. Like when Dave was in town and he played the Corea tribute at Lincoln Center, and all these guys came out and played, that was like, and I don't know if there's a recording anywhere of that whole show, but it was one of those nights where you're like seeing something get captured that's really special, that's never going to happen again. It's never going to be that combination of people in a room ever again. It was just such an amazing evening, and it's like, that was not touchable. I can't get that again. But I was there. Right. Thank God I was there.
I got offered a ticket to that, and I could not go, and I was really bummed.
Oh, man.
I was going to be there, but I think there is some footage of that.
Yeah, I would imagine somewhere.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it, though, but I heard it was amazing.
I don't think they're going to release it like as a product.
No, I don't think so either.
And by the way, where else are you going to see? So on that stage near the end of the night, all the guys came out and played together. So you had Gad, Weckel, Antonio Sanchez, and Brian played, all playing together, which was like killing. There were 2 drum kits, so they were swapping out, jumping. Gad would get up, Dave would sit down, and then they just kept swapping it out. It was pretty fun. And the other memorable thing I will say is that Brian played a lot of the night, actually, and he kept thinking he was done, so he would like grab his stick bag and he would start to walk off the stage, and they're like, no, man, you're still on. Get back over there. Then he'd go back and he'd play again. Then he thought he was done and he'd walk off. And then by the end of the night, they're going like, the hardest working man in show business, Brian Blade, come back out. Yeah, great night. All right, cool. So you get the Michel gig. Dave makes the introduction, or he was already getting to know you because you were going out to the shows. So what was that audition like? Is it just
absolutely terrifying?
I would imagine that must have been so terrifying.
I almost didn't go.
Wow.
I almost didn't go because I thought, I am not ready. One of the tunes I was going to play was this tune that Aerto wrote called Tumble in 7/4. And there's a solo in 7/4. I mean, I could barely play in 7/4.
Right.
And there was this, so I practiced, and I remember walking. The auditions was at a rehearsal studio called Sounds of Joy, which is no longer there, but in New York. It was a beautiful day, and I'm walking, and I'm like, it's like this is. I thought there's so many other things I could be doing outside, or there was some garbage men. There was a truck, a New York City truck, and they were like laughing, and they're doing. I said, I could do that. That looks like fun. That's a no stress job, and And I went in there, and Anthony was already there. And if you know Anthony, he's very shy. He's not
quiet.
He's not. I'm not going to say he's not warm, because once you get to know him, he's great. But he's very stone faced. It's not welcoming. That's the word.
Okay.
So if you can picture this, so I get in there, and I'm on the bench, and Anthony, I'm 20 minutes early. And I'm sitting there, and Michel, I think, was hearing a couple guys, or maybe it was just me, I don't know. So it's just me, but Anthony is already there, and he's reading some encyclopedia like he does. So here he is. He's sitting there. He's not looking up from his book. I'm sitting 5 feet away from him, and I'm like, I want to introduce myself because like I'm getting ready to walk into a room with him. It's like he'll say. So finally it's 15 minutes before I audition. So I said, "Excuse me, Anthony. My name's Joel. I'm going to be auditioning for Michel." And he just looks from his book. He goes like, "Okay." He goes back to his book, and silence for the next 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
So awkward.
Terrifying.
And then Michel
also
came, and he's very big.
Yeah.
Michel was a very big personality, and I don't know. I don't remember much of that except that I got a phone call saying, let's do some gigs."
Nice.
And, that's how it started.
So for the preparation for that, you had some charts ahead of time or recordings ahead of time?
Yeah, I had all kinds of bootlegs. There was no trio records yet, so there was like the big band record. And actually, the first gigs, I think I did do some big band gigs. In fact, I'm absolutely with Lou Soloff and Chris Hunter and Sammy Figueroa.
Oh wow!
So there was the Why Not record,
yeah.
which had all that stuff. So I had that, and Michel mailed me charts. But like I said, the charts were just kind of like a guide, and I was even afraid to mark the charts because they were original, handwritten.
Oh yeah.
And then for whatever, he saw potential in me, and I want to tell this story too, because then so let's fast forward 6 months, and now it's a trio. I'm in Europe with just Anthony and Michel, and I've been playing with them for a while, and I'm always in awe of Michel and Anthony. It's like I always feel like I don't deserve to be there, and this, and I would always be apologizing after, like, oh man, I messed up, blah blah blah. And Anthony finally, he says, "Listen, shut up with that shit. You would not be here if you weren't doing the gig. So you got to let that go."
Yeah.
And I tried. I kept it to myself, But it goes back to what I said before. I was definitely the most inexperienced player in that trio, and those guys pulled me up. It's an incredible learning experience for me. And Anthony spoiled me for just about every other bass player, as you can imagine.
Right. Oh my God. That's true. So how old are you at this point?
25.
Okay. Yeah. And you look like, by the way, you look like such a baby when you look at the pictures, right? You look like maybe you had your bar mitzvah like the year before. And there you are on the gig. But I saw you at like the Blue Note. I saw you at Michel's. I saw you in the city, a bunch of times. And, I was always really inspired. And I was always like, man, I go, how could there be another guy that's like just as good, as Weckl on this gig and like playing this kind of stuff? I was like, damn, where have I been hiding? Like, do I live under a rock? What is happening? And
Jim, that's nice. Thank you, Jim.
And yeah, and so like, I just remember going out and seeing you play and just being like, damn, another one. Fuck. But really being inspired by what you did. And I think on the Suntan record, you're on like the first couple tracks, right? Track 1 and 3 or something. That record blew me away. Like when I heard that Suntan record for the first time, I had it on cassette. I was like,
that was a live to 2-track.
Cool.
And we did a few takes. Weckl was there. So I'll tell you about that session. So we had one session booked at Clinton, and we recorded the whole thing in one day. Weckl did, his tracks first, and then he goes to the control room, and then I'm up. I got Weckl in that freaking control room, and I'm playing, but we did a few takes, and Dave told me, the take they took obviously is the one that Michel played the best on.
Right. Okay.
But Dave told me that like one of the alternate takes, like he said it was great. I have no idea, but when you're doing, that goes back to when you work with somebody else, it's up to them, and you got to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you can't be married to the.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But it was stressful. I'm playing with my heroes and in a big recording. So that was like one, Clinton, if anybody remembers that, that was like the major big room studio with the big boys.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Yeah, that must have
I'm
been.
doing weddings. I'm doing weddings and stuff right before this, and I'm just coming off Pure Prairie League and playing blues gigs and so now I'm playing with my heroes.
Yeah.
To make that switch in your head it was challenging.
Yeah. But, as Anthony said, like, you wouldn't have been there if you didn't deserve to be there.
Right.
That's
right.
So, like, opportunity meets preparedness, right? And throwing caution to the wind and just going for it. I mean, there's that part of it too, right? That daredevil that's in your, psyche.
I had to do it, and I'm glad I did, obviously. But who knows if I didn't get that gig, I'd still be a drummer.
Right.
And what gig would I have gotten that would have shaped me a different way?
That's true.
Or maybe I'd be doing playing with a country band for arenas.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Who knows? I mean, I just followed the path that was before me. And, you do the Michel Camilo gig that led to the Paquito de Rivera gig, that led to the Ileana Elias gig.
Right.
That led to the Steve Kahn gig.
Yep.
That, so you're in a circle of musicians that kind of feeds off each other, So I wasn't in a pop music circle.
Right. And there's always, I feel like, in everybody's story and everybody's journey, there's a connecting, it's like 6 degrees of separation with musicians, like where there's a connecting player from each thing to go to the next. So like from the Michel Camilo gig, what connected you to the Paquito de Rivera gig? Or did Paquito just hear you?
Yeah, well, Michel would play with Paquito, played
Right.
the Paquito's band.
Right.
And so Paquito heard me, or Michel recommended, I don't remember. And then there was a pianist in Paquito's band named Daniel Freiberg, a Brazilian guy, and Claudio Roditi, another Brazilian trumpet player.
Yeah.
And that was the Ileani connection.
Right.
And then the Steve Kahn thing, that was after Bill Evans, or I don't remember how I got the Steve Kahn thing. But
wait, how'd you get the Bill Evans one, by the way?
Bill is my neighbor.
Oh.
Was my neighbor in New York, and I've known him for years.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of an interesting gig, man.
Yeah, that was fun. He's a great cat to work for. He's one of those guys that wanted you to try different stuff. He was not into like, okay, this is the part, you got to do that.
Right.
And it's weird instrumentations and he's a motherfucker player, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he was great. I don't remember how. Like I said, I've known him. We did some gigs, and he asked me to do a little tour, and we did that. And it's all about chemistry. Does it work? It does not work. And
right.
And
by the way, there's a clip on your website of you doing a solo. It's on YouTube.
I can't believe how much traction people love that thing.
It's great because what's so cool is there's a lot of spontaneity in it, and even just the little cymbal taps that you were doing, like people will talk about that, and the reason is it really was spontaneity, I think, and musical. And I'm sure you've heard it a million times, and even the hi-hat thing, I'm a lefty, but like where you're doing the foot with the two triplets on top and the rim click. So all those like little morsels, make people react.
Yeah. That's we played that tune. That's just one night I happened to record, and that was part of my vocabulary at that time. And right. It's just the snapshot. And playing on a rental drum set, I think that was in Germany. It was not comfortable. Monitors sucked. The usual jazz thing.
Yeah.
And it's just that's I'm so spoiled now. Like with special effects, I have like now I use in-ears, and I have a little mixer, and with the ambient mic, and I get a mono mix from the house guy, and with the phone you have the app for the board maybe. And
right.
So it's easy. It sounds better, so it's easier to play. I mean, all those bill gigs. I mean, usually it was just a mess and just like, all right, here we go. We call them throw and go.
Right, right.
It's just like, all right, let's go play.
Yeah, you're like you had a front of house guy. You probably didn't have a monitor guy.
Oh,
No in-ears at the time, right? Of course,
no,
too early for that.
it's when you're touring, when you're doing jazz gigs in Europe, there's no money for that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, it's war out there, and you gotta rely on your everybody. We have stuff that we work on.
Right.
We keep working on it, but it doesn't really become part of your subconscious material. I mean, it takes months and months or years and years, and when you can't hear anything, you're just relying on what's just part of you,
Right.
And whatever vocabulary that is, and yeah, that was just a snapshot of that day. I don't remember that was. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can't believe how people talk about that all the time. So I'm happy I put that up there. That was like, I did that on my little G3 MacBook in the van. I remember syncing up. I had like a camera, and then we had these long van rides. And in iMovie, I was just like syncing up the audio, trying to get it to line up and everything. And and then I just threw it up on YouTube.
See, isn't it funny like that you just kind of like, or whatever, I'll just throw this up there. And then that gets the traction. It's so funny how that works. Yeah, man. By the way, so tell me about the Miles thing.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. I never play with my only connection with Miles is from Bill playing with Miles. I never play with Miles.
Okay, because people have written that in your bio in different places, right? And I was like, huh. I go, so was it like the late 80s stuff where it was like getting, we had programming going on? I was trying to find it and I couldn't find it, and I was like, man, and I've definitely interviewed a bunch of guys that have played with Miles, but it's like even in the late days of Miles stuff.
Yeah, that must have been some misprint. It's also a misprint that I played with Chick.
Okay, yeah.
Although I actually did play with him at a jam session, but I don't to put that stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
When people are doing bios, you can't put in, like, if you happen to be in the room at a jam session and they play, that's not playing with that person.
Right. It would be like I played with this blues group, and we were playing at BB King's, and Osnoy sat in. So like if I put that on my resume that I played with Osnoy, that would be wrong.
The definition of working with somebody is when they call you.
When they call you and hire you. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so I wanted to clear up the Miles thing. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that must have been a misprint on something, and then people latch on to that, and it's like...
Yeah.
So I never played with Miles. It would have been something, I can say that. That's for sure.
And definitely one of my questions, and I might as well bring it up now since we're on that topic, is who would be one person that you have not played with, living or non-living, that you would love to play with or wish you had played with?
Oh man, you should have sent me that question, and I could have thought about it.
I know. I never send them ahead of time because I kind of want people to just get spontaneous and see what pops out. But
oh man, well, depending on the style, like I would love to have played with Sting.
Yeah,
I think that's I would have loved to play with. I would have loved to play with Miles.
Right.
I'm trying to think. I'm actually a fan. I would love to play with like Lukather.
Yeah.
I like to play with cats who have pocket, man.
Yeah.
As a drummer, to be able to play with any musician. Chick Corea, I would have loved to play with Chick Corea. I mean, his comping.
Oh.
Michael Brecker. I mean, when Michael Brecker would play, you hear the time. There's no, noodling around. I mean, it's pocket. Right. So cats like that. I mean, I would love to play with any of those cats. So, but those guys are gone. So except for Sting. But
and Lukather.
And Luke, yep.
I mean, Lukather is one of those guys too that he's so freaking talented. Like, he can sing like nobody's business. He plays guitar like so killer. And as a writer, so great.
I've been listening lately. You know what I'd love to play with, because I'm getting into more singers.
Yeah.
Is Gregory Porter.
Oh, cool, man.
I mean, again, there's not a lot of drumistic things going on, but there's a
Right.
lot of music going on.
Yeah.
That's kind of the cat I mentioned before, Porter Carroll. I'm in support mode. We have arrangements and dynamics, and it's really about delivering a feeling.
Yeah.
Getting away from like, oh, I can solo my ass off and this and that. Like we talk about the competition thing. And plus I've hurt my back a few years ago, where I have a little nerve damage in my foot now, so I don't even have the bass drum chops that I used to have.
Right.
I'm getting older, and music is changing how it's coming out of me.
Yeah.
But I've known, like, if you look at my discography and stuff on YouTube, it's like, I'm playing a lot of shit.
Yeah.
I get called to do that stuff, to record, and I do it. It's a lot easier to do it here under controlled circumstances.
Right.
Than if I had to go out live and play a 2-hour show of that stuff. That would be challenging for me now,
Yeah.
But I'm definitely into more of the musical side of drums. That's why I'm kind of like into like some country. I hate the country format because it's all the same.
Right.
It's so much the same, but I dig the sound and the feel that some of these cats have. It's just greasy, and it just lays there.
Yeah,
and being a jazz guy and being on top all the time and like energy, it's really nice. It's just like, oh man, that just feels good.
Yeah. Did it, when you stepped away from like the Michel Camilo gig, because it always seemed like, there's like the next guy doing that gig, and then the next guy, and it's like very, very competitive looking, as a model, right? Of like, like, it was like Dave, and then you, and then Cliff Almond, and, seeing these different guys step into that gig. And I think even for a short time, Zach Danziger.
Zach turned it down, which I was so
turned
impressed
it down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
By the way, his thing now,
oh, I know.
Wednesday Night Titans, how freaking amazing is that?
Oh, yeah. He's so freaking talented.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He's super talented. I remember just watching him play, at the 55 with like, Lenny or Mike Stern.
Wayne Grant.
Yeah, Chuck Loeb, that kind of stuff. But it's like hyper competitive looking model for being a musician. And then, looking at like Spyro, which is almost, it's got really a lot of deep roots within it, but it's more of a groove model, right? So for you personally as a player, was that sort of like I can breathe a little bit more? It's more of a unit, supportive role.
I think at the time, I didn't look at it that way. And my ego was like, I'm going to bring this shit to the next level with what I can do.
Okay.
And that's actually also when I switched to match grip with Spyro.
Oh, okay.
Because I was doing all these triggers and stuff on the left, and and I didn't really have the power for. I never really did a backbeat gig for any kind of a long period of time, which Spyro really was.
Right.
And I was hurting my thumb because my traditional was like open. I didn't have my finger on top a lot.
Right,
So
and
it
you
was really
played sort of at the back of the stick too, I think, right? Yeah.
So I switched to match, but I was always trying to elevate. In my opinion, again, this is, you look back and it's like, I don't know, I was being true to myself at the time.
Yeah.
But it definitely was, a lot of the tunes, were simple, they're smooth jazz, pocket stuff, and, playing with great players. There was some stuff that we did that was very, I'm most proud of the live record we did. It's called Road Scholars, which is just, I mean, that's really the way the band sounded, which is not like the records.
Right. Road
You know,
Scholars is a great album. And that's funny that you said that, because to really get a snapshot of what the band is
right.
with the human element and reacting to each other and the musicianship coming alive on stage, that's a great point. That's the way to hear it, for sure. Yeah.
And the reason I left Spyro, so I did that gig for almost 14 years.
Yeah.
And I would still have that gig. I mean, they're still going, they're still working, you know, it's a great unit. But I kind of got tired of, you know, we'd rehearse for a couple weeks and then we'd have 12 songs and we'd play those the whole year.
Yeah.
And especially at the beginning, we were busy and they had you couldn't sub the gig out and they wouldn't give time off because they might get gigs, you know, so you're like on call.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to play other stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to play other stuff. And that's really why there was no, you know, they're great guys. I'm still friends with them. And, you know, there's no hard feelings. It's just like, I was just like, I wasn't put on this earth to play this gig for the rest of my life.
Right. Right.
And so,
and you were in there. I mean, that's a long tenure to play with a band, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, and that's a band. It's team player band, you know, setup.
Totally. And, you know, there's a lot of good things that come with being in the band. You know, you have the tightest arrangements. You know, when you're doing pickup stuff, I call them eyes and ears gigs.
Yeah.
You know, you're just watching and listening, and you hit some stuff together, which is magical, and then some shit's fucked up, but that's part of playing live, and, you know, it's all okay. But there's something to be said for, like, I know there's this horn line coming up here, and I can't wait to play the perfect fill to set it up, and, you know, you get your things, your sounds, and I had my electronics, this is the part for this, and it's kind of like the Broadway thing a little bit, not as rigid as that.
Right.
But it's like, you know, you're doing a show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show, and it's at the highest quality.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the pop gigs are, really. It's run like a Broadway show would be run. Yeah.
And nothing's more like you know, I had a little run on Broadway. I've done some. I stayed away from Broadway for a long time because of the stigma, and actually, when I was starting, it wasn't considered, you know, the best musicians were doing that.
Right.
But as you get the drum machines, the studio thing dries up. All the studio musicians went down to the Broadway thing, you know. So the pits now are filled with amazing players.
Andres is like ridiculous from Hamilton. I mean, he's a great drummer.
So he brought me into Hamilton. So I was subbing on that, and that is the poster boy for zero creativity and all about the craft of recreating the amazing music that's been done, and you got to do it this way. So it's about how to regurgitate that at the highest level.
Precision.
And I could never do that forever because there's nothing of me in there. I'm not expressing myself at all.
Right.
But to go in there and sub and like, all right, my goal is to play a perfect show, which of course never happens. But it's like a different muscle thing. And then, you know, I would go do that, and then I do my other gigs, whatever. And then I would look forward. I'd always be stressed out going into Hamilton because, you know, it's heavy. You can't mess that up.
No.
You cannot mess that stuff up.
I mean, and there's a lot of space within some of that stuff, right? Like Andres uses a gel pad so he can tap time in between those little break sections and stuff. It's really, you know, high precision, high pressure, you know, environment.
Yep. Definitely the subbing on Broadway is the hardest thing anybody will ever do.
Yeah.
Any drummer will ever do, because you're not on your drums. You know, there's no rehearsal. You gotta have three eyes, because you gotta look at the conductor on the camera. You gotta look at the music, and you gotta aim because you're not on your kit.
Right.
And Andres, you know, if you know Andres, he's not a tall guy.
No.
I'm not a tall guy.
That's right.
And for me playing his kit, it's like I feel like I'm kind of like playing like this. Like I feel like Tyrannosaurus Rex with the little arms, because everything is so close to me.
Yeah, that would be like me trying to play Tommy Igoe's kit. Like, I'm 5'6", you know, it's like.
a good friend of mine, Warren Oates, who's another great drummer. He said to describe what it's like to sub on Broadway. Picture yourself, you're driving, you're driving in the rain in your car. The windshield wipers don't work, and somebody's burning you with a cigarette at the same time.
Oh my God, that's great.
It's the most stressful. When I first went in there, my first show, like I prepped, I did everything I could. I had my kit set up. I went in there and measured everything because it's like a real aiming thing.
Yeah.
And I had like dummy pads set up and like I was playing stuff, but it wasn't making a sound. But I was just trying to get the physical thing happening.
Yeah.
So the first show, you go in there, and I literally was so freaked out, and I had the headphones on, like you're wearing those GKs. That's what I had. I couldn't even hear the count off because all I heard was my heart beating, like the pulse, like boom, boom, boom. It was heavy, man.
Yeah, it's really funny. Like from show to show, if you think about it, like if you were starting to sub on Broadway, something more palatable or easier to slide into would be like like when Jersey Boys was on, or like Moving Out, something where it's like song oriented, simpler, not a lot of electronics, not heavy arrangements the way like Hamilton is. Hamilton's like high pressure.
Yeah. And I did On Your Feet, which is the Gloria Stefan show.
Yeah.
Which was just like playing those tunes. It was super fun and easy. I did Mamma Mia.
Right.
Which again, playing tunes. But I also did In the Heights.
In the Heights is another heavy one.
And that was my first one. I was like, holy crap. But that was a great show. I mean, look, those guys, Andres and that whole team, Alex Lacamoire and everything, that shit is at the highest level.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud to have been part of that for whatever time I was, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, In the Heights is another one. Like my buddy Joe Bergamini subbed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he subbed on In the Heights. He was like, there's so much pressure. He's like, I never want to do, it's like certain ones, he did it, been there, done that, don't want to do it again. Yeah. Holy moly. Yeah, man. It's pretty interesting. And special effects, I mean, with that, and the special effects all-stars thing, right? So are you guys still working as a unit now? Yeah.
This weekend. So what's happened now with many of the jazz artists is there's not enough audience for special effects on their own to draw enough or have enough touring. So they do the package deals.
Right.
So I'll do special effects like smaller venues, and I love that. I mean, Chieli is one of my favorites. I mean, an incredible writer.
Yeah.
But the all-star thing, it brings in people. It's for marquee value. So you got Gerald Veasley and you got Eric Marienthal and you have Karen Briggs.
Nice.
Mesa from Incognito will sing all these. And we do. It's kind of weird because we do all these tunes. There's not a lot of cohesiveness because we'll be doing like smooth jazz and then we'll do a fusion thing and then we'll do like a pop tune and everything. But as a drummer, it's great because I get to play all those styles in one gig.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been doing that. But then there's logistics now with the airlines. I'm not on all the gigs because it's too expensive to fly me to California. So there's a cat out there, Gene Coy. I don't know if you know Gene.
No, I don't
Great
know Gene.
Out there. So he does gigs out there. Or Gary Novak or Shane Gallus has done it.
Yeah.
And then I do like what makes sense, airplane wise. It's like it's just weird, and I don't have any. I don't, if I get called, any gig could be my last gig. If I get called for the next gig, I'm grateful and I'm happy to do it. And it's not like I'm in this band and they're obligated to me or anything. That stuff is gone. I'm not in a band.
Right. Yeah, I got you. By the way, we should just mention that. So Brian Dunn's in the chat. Yo, Brian, what's up?
Hey, Brian. Your ears must be ringing, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just a quick funny story. When Brian did the show, my buddy Jim Mola made a Facebook page called Brian Dunn is a Badass and just launched a Facebook page for fun. And so I don't know how many people are following that Facebook page, but Brian Dunn is a badass.
Come get your drum tracks.
Yeah, man. By the way, Rich Stitzel's in here, great drummer, and he was saying that one of his favorite exercises that he used to shed all the time was from a Joel drum clinic in Arlington, Texas from 1992. There you go. What was that?
What was that? Who the hell knows?
By the way, I saw a great clip of you doing a drum clinic with a trio, and you guys were like playing the chicken, and just listening to you just talk about musicianship at that clinic was very, very cool. You're kind of like just talking about, and of course, there's always the obligatory annoying question like, does anybody have any questions about what I was just playing? And some kids like, what kind of pedal are you using? And it's like,
yeah. You remember who the other musicians were?
I don't. And I was going to ask you who the piano player was, but I think that clinic, I think I wrote where it was. Wait a minute. Oh, it was at an art center. Wait, I wrote this down somewhere because I wanted to ask you about that. Where did I write it? Oh yeah, the Blue Bamboo Center, and it was just this past February.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Chris Cortez's club down there, who's a great cat who runs the club down there, and those were local guys. Oh, except it was Ron Jenkins was playing bass.
Yeah.
No, but maybe not. No, he wasn't at the clinic because he did the gig. But you're talking about it was a drum. It was like a
drum clinic. Yeah, it's a drum clinic.
Yeah, so that was all local guys.
Okay. So yeah, and you just in one part of it, you guys played like your own version of the chicken, like everybody would do, right? And you guys played it a little bit down tempo and a little swampy. It was cool. And then you were just talking about choices and musicianship. And I appreciate those kind of clinics. Like I'll send my students to go watch that clip because you're talking about choices and about musicianship and stuff. So I just wanted to mention that. I thought it was really good.
Thank you, Jim. I mean, what I try and do in my clinics, like what I don't like and serve no purpose are what I call dig me clinics.
Right, exactly.
The cats just go up and they play all this amazing shit and everything, which, for all the drummers listening, the only people who care about boogada, 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 boogada are other drummers.
Right.
And they're not the ones hiring you.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. I mean, I think those kind of clinics, they're exciting and it's entertainment. It's like it's a circus.
Yeah.
But it's not helping any drummers further their musicianship and career.
Right. 100%.
So as long as you look at it like, wow, this is a great night, we'll go in and see some amazing, virtuosity. If you look at it that way, that's fine. But you start playing like that, you're going to get your ass fired.
Yeah, 100%. You'll get the drummer, not on my gig, kind of thing.
All that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. So usually around this time, I do like a little speed round thing. These are like just quick off top of your head questions. Okay. So I think, by the way, is there anything new that you're working on besides what we talked about before, the sessions that Brian was doing? Anything new that you want to mention that's happening?
Yeah, I'm in the middle. I also I'm getting ready to form a production company with my friend Steve Saichi, who's I've been doing library music for a long time, and we've been doing stuff like from the '70s, really authentically,
nice,
with the tuning and stuff like that. And we're getting ready to like maybe start putting out some really vintage sounding records. I'm kind of excited about that, and it's the music that I grew up listening to, and Philly soul and Memphis soul, and so I've been doing that for a long time, but now it's been for libraries, but now we're toying with the idea of putting that out.
Nice.
I'm doing another project now for a cat in L.A., Peter Fernandez, which I've done some record with him before. He's putting a new one out. That's a great cast of check this out. The drummers are me, Vinny, and Thomas Lang.
Awesome.
And then it's like Rick Fierro Bracci playing bass, Brandon Fields, heavy shit, man. I don't,
Nice.
So I'm doing that. I'm in the middle. I got to do one more tune for him, and then I'm really proud of the Porter Carroll project,
Yeah.
where we are. I don't know what the date is. We're still kind of, John Patitucci is doing string arrangements. We have live strings on it. It's very orchestral. It's beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. So that's kind of a biggest, and I'm mixing that. So that's a huge thing that is not done, but we're in the middle of doing that. And whatever people send me, come get your drum tracks.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm ready.
That's awesome. If I'm ever up in New England, or the next time I am, I would love to come see the studio.
I would love for you to come up because I need help in terms of what I need here.
Cool, man. Yeah, maybe we'll make that happen.
Okay.
I work with a singer-songwriter that we sometimes head up that way, so I will. I'll let you know. That would be very cool.
I would love that. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, because you mentioned Patitucci, again, back to that Chick Corea tribute. Man, his playing was so heavy that night. Oh my God. I mean, I know everybody had a heavy heart. They're kind of like digging deep, but man, his playing that night. I mean, Eric Marienthal too. I mean, the electric band stuff was just killing, really ridiculous. But Patitucci was doing a lot of really beautiful bowing work and just gorgeous
He's a
playing.
wonderful human, man. I mean, I've been working with him a little bit now because he's producing a couple of these tracks for the Porter Carroll thing. And he came here. I recorded him playing. He actually came CliffSound 2.0.
Okay.
Recorded, like I got John Patitucci in my studio, and he has that gift of making anybody feel relevant and worthy. He's got no attitude at all, zero. Just a positive cat. I mean, I really appreciate him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and what a again, you count your blessings. It's like what a great blessing to work with him, right? It's like amazing. By the way, Jason Gianni's hanging with us, and
Jay, what's up?
Jason, you got to get on the show. You should come in the studio with me and do the show. You could sit on my lap, and we'll do the show together. So Jason said, ask Joel about Virgil Donati solo that you had to learn for a gig about 15 years ago. He said we were trying to analyze it against the metronome, and I know it was driving him bananas.
What the hell is he talking about? I don't remember that. I need more details, Jay.
Jay, you got to be more specific. He goes, yeah, sit in your lap facing you, because Jason and I were on a technology panel, like a drum education panel at PASIC last year.
Yep.
And he was sitting next to me. We're on the panel together. And I was like, where are you going to sit, man? He goes, I'm going to sit on your lap facing you for the whole conference.
Great.
I was like, great.
Great
Cool. Yeah, figure that out, Jason. I love Jason. He's a great guy. We did a Sam Ash clinic together a bunch of years back. That was the first time I met him.
He brought me to I guess he went to college, a state college in Pennsylvania, and he brought me there for a clinic. That's where I met him.
Oh, shit. Cool, man. All right, while he's perusing that question, I got my speed round questions. Wait, where is this?
All right.
So some of them are really stupid, and most of them are really stupid. And some of them are more relevant, but here we go. Oh, and by the way, since you lived in New York for so long, what's best pizza in New York for you?
Got to be, the one I went to the most was Ray's down like across from the Blue Note, diagonally across.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mahmoud's Falafel. I mean,
yeah.
Most of the time in the city, most of the gigs were down in the Village, so that's kind of where I hung out. That's,
Ray's on 11th. Ray's on 11th, I thought was the best. I actually, I took my kids once when they were really little, and it was pouring out, and we lived in Brooklyn at the time, and I'm like, it's like 9 p.m. My wife was working nights at the time, and I was like, we're going to Ray's, get in the car. They're like 8 years old and, 2 or something, and I took them into the city. We went to Ray's on 11th. First record you ever bought with your own money?
I know the answer to this. You ready? Stan Kenton, 7.5 on the Richter scale.
Wow. Oh,
Because
very cool.
in high school, I just wanted to be a big band drummer. I wasn't interested in AM radio shit and anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's I would and you mentioned John Riley.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, we had these jazz camps, and Woody Herman was in residence, and John was playing. John is probably like 5 years older than me, so I was 16. He was probably like 21,
Wow. Nice.
and we hung out. Yeah, he's a great cat, man. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
so that's that.
sweetheart, man. He has a new book coming out, so he'll be doing the show real soon. We're waiting till we get the copy so I can raffle one off during the show. First concert you ever attended?
Buddy, first concert. I think my dad took me to see Buddy Rich at the Felt Forum,
Oh shit!
and I was still playing trumpet.
Oh, all
That's
right.
kind of when I said, "What? I'm getting more excited by the drums than I am by the trumpets."
Wow.
How do you not go to a Buddy thing and not get turned on by the drums?
Oh my god.
But
Yeah.
it stuck. I guess it stuck. So yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, me too. Buddy Rich at the Brooklyn Academy of Music when I was like 11.
Wow.
First, um, first gig you ever did?
New Year's Eve, 17 years old. Totaled my parents' car on the way to the gig.
What? On the way to the gig?
On the way to the gig. So I was a freshman in college. I never did any gigs. I mean, I was in a couple garage bands playing. Like I was in this band. We tried to play some Yes stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
And I was a freshman in college, and there was a pianist. He said, "I got a New Year's Eve gig. It's $100." And I went home. It's Christmas break, so I went home, and then I said, "Can I borrow the car? I got to go back up to school." I was living in New Jersey,
Right.
and I was going to do the New Year's Eve gig, which was a Friday. Then the Saturday, I was going to go skiing with my roommate at the time. We were going to go up, right? So I went to his house first and dropped off my skis. And then I had to go to the gig, and I was so excited about the gig, and I wasn't paying attention. I ran a red light, and I T-boned somebody.
Oh shit.
Didn't hurt them, but I was like, okay. And then how did I even get to the gig? Because there's no cell phones. I must have called some of the cop, and then he gave me a ride. It was a situation. Then my dad had to come up, and
Oh my god.
so my first gig was a New Year's Eve gig. Yep.
Totaled the car. Good job. So I mean, I would imagine this might answer this one. The worst or weirdest gig you ever had, was it that one, or was there a worst or weirdest gig?
Oh man, I would say not the worst because, but we were in could have been Indonesia or maybe the Philippines. And so we Spyro, we do these like weird gigs where, the stage is set up with bamboo poles and there's no light truss. But so, we had a stellar crew. I mean, we would go in there, the crew would always go first, and they would, we had sound check, say at 4 or whatever, and they would send back, we're not ready, because they're rewiring the PA, it's soldering cables, because
Jeez.
Whatever PA they have in the Philippines is, So anyway, we were playing, all the power went out. They had one generator, couldn't handle everything. And then we continued to play acoustically, and people were holding flashlights. I had a guy next to me holding flashlights, lighting me up.
Oh shit.
And everybody else had a flashlight holding them, and that's how we finished the gig.
Oh my
Kind
god.
of hilarious, actually.
Oh, that's insane. That's great. One record that you listen to that may surprise people based on your history.
One record that I've done,
That you listen to,
that I listened to.
just as a listener or a person that enjoys music.
The Story, Angel in the House.
The Story, Angel in the House.
Story is the name of the band.
Right.
It's Jonathan Brooke.
Okay.
And Ben Whitman plays drums on that. It's a beautifully produced and beautiful. It's going to be dated for many people.
Right.
You know, my girlfriend always makes fun of me because like everything I like is from the '90s.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
I love that record. I'm trying to think of something else.
I just wrote that down. I'm gonna check that out.
It's you gotta like put headphones on and just listen to that whole record. It's beautiful.
Cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so let's just go with that for now.
All right, cool. So, by the way, when you said you played some Yes tunes with your garage band, like was that Bill Bruford Yes or Alan White kind of Yes?
Alan White. It was like
Oh,
roundabout, and
oh,
and
okay,
then Mustangs, whatever. It was just, you know, my mom dropped me off with my drums at some guy's garage, and
gotcha.
the bass player was like totally that Fast Time at Ridgemont High, like open the garage door and the smoke coming out.
Smoke just pours out.
My mom was
Nice,
terrified, I'm sure.
probably. Um, okay, drummers. I'm going to mention drummers' names and first reaction, first thing that comes to your mind. Doesn't have to be long. It could be one word, could be one sentence, whatever. So Richie Morales.
Wow. Great Pocket,
Yeah.
Pocket, and he influenced me from the Brecker brothers and Spyro.
Did you meet him before you did the gig?
Yeah, I knew him.
Okay.
A quick story of how I got that gig.
Okay.
Colin Schofield, who used to be the Zildjian rep.
Okay.
I happened to be was calling Zildjian for something, and he said, I just heard that Richie's going to be leaving Spyro. I said, and you'd be perfect for that gig. You should, maybe call him up. And, I said, all right, do you have his number? Whatever. So I called Richie. I didn't know Richie. And I called him up and I said, Richie, I know this is kind of weird, but Colin Schofield told me, and I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I heard that you might be leaving Spyro. And is there any way, can you give me the number of the management and I can call, And there was like dead silence on the other end of the phone. And I was like, oh shit. And then he says, you want that gig?
That's great.
So I didn't have to send because of Richie's recommendation, I didn't have to send an audition tape.
Oh,
And they said that we're going to, we'll hear you. So
nice.
that was one of the guys. They listened to 15 guys.
Oh,
And
wow.
everybody sent in submissions, blah, blah, blah. So they narrowed it down to 15 people. And that's how that went.
Wow. Oh, very cool. All right. How about I'm just gonna throw out some drummer names. Jack DeJohnette.
Ah, the Keith Jarrett stuff.
Yeah.
It's just so musical and killing. And again, I got to tell another quick story. Jack DeJohnette Clinic. Somebody asked him, "What are you thinking about when you're playing?" And he said, "I'm trying to take myself out of the drums, put myself in the front row, and listen to the band,
Nice.
not listen to myself." Again, another light bulb moment.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Tony Williams.
The ride symbol of doom. The
Quarter note of doom.
hit 17 years old. I mean, well,
Yeah.
this is common knowledge. I mean, the swing is ridiculous, and the sound of his drums too, really, really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Really killer. Big sound.
Yep.
What
The
about
comping that he did then was just ridiculous.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
How about Rick Marotta? Do you know Rick?
Oh, I don't know him. Of course, his playing again, and that's the LA thing. Super musical. I mean, in the same, doing all the sessions with Percaro and Gad and everything, and Vinny, but so different. I mean, he was just like pocket guy.
Yeah.
And playing with intention and conviction. I mean, that's his brother too, Jerry, also.
Intention, yeah.
Just like freaking laying it down, not doing stuff fancy, but just, man, this is where it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's those guys, a lot of times drummers might be thinking like, they're looking around, am I laying it down? Is everybody digging what I'm doing? They're like, fuck it. This is where it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is a great thing to be a drummer, as long as as long as you can back it up.
Right,
You don't want to
right.
be that shitty player that's but anyway, yeah, so killer. Love Rick.
Nice. All right, I'll just give you one or two more. So our good buddy David Garibaldi.
I mean, me like everybody else, he turned the world on its ear.
Yeah.
Just trying to describe that stuff. You think you have it, but it's not exactly how he did it. I mean, very innovative, and he, for a minute there when he left Tower, he was really exploring the Latin stuff. If his
Yeah.
Latin records, really, really great. I mean, he's a great musician and another great human for sure.
Yeah. He's got a new book called DG's Notebook. That's
Oh, no kidding.
that's really cool. Yeah, it's like it's all the scribblings from his notebook put into a book format. It's really, really cool. I spent time with him working on his tech setup over the pandemic, and so we got pretty close. And he was showing me his notebook all the time, saying like, "Here, check this thing out." When he did the show, he actually played. He's like, "Do you mind if I play?" I was like, "What? Mind if you play?" I'm like, "Yeah, play."
Nice.
Yeah, very cool. So and I'll give you one more guy. How about Simon? Since I just had Simon on.
Some of the best drum sounds going.
Yeah.
You listen to this bass drum sound and talk about. I mean, he plays everything. I mean, his rock feel. I mean, he can cover. Vinny's another guy. It's like it doesn't matter where you put him, they play what's right for the style.
Yeah.
But Simon, like the Toto stuff, the Hiromi stuff, the Pete Townsend, the Who, I mean, all those things. He's just playing the right stuff.
Yeah.
But he's such a big, open sound.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and I will say he is he's got a signature sound. Like when you hear that bass drum, 24-inch bass drum with the little towel, that's him.
Yeah. That's true, man. That's one guy where you never go, who's that on drums? It's like as soon as you hear him, you're like, Simon. Yeah.
I was just listening today to Alex Van Halen, who's another. I'm not a huge fan of that drum sound,
right?
But it's him.
It's like, Alex. Yeah.
That's him for sure.
Plus, that guy, Alex Van Halen has a certain swing and a certain lope to his playing.
He's great. He is great.
Such a great player. So underrated, I think. Bergamini and I were talking about, like, man, we should do like a really heavy book on Alex. Something did come out at some point, but like that's a guy that people need to look at, I think.
He's a great player. I mean, he plays. Talk about innovative and the right parts for the songs.
Yeah.
That Van Halen shit is very cool, man. It's sophisticated.
It is. Yeah, it's really sophisticated. Yep. There's that tune off of there's a tune called Sinner's Swing off of like one of the later records. I'm forgetting which album that is. But Mean Streets is on it.
I listened to Right Now.
Yeah.
That's like that whole tune. It's just great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Even the phrasing on the guitar solo of, was it Panama? No. What's the one with the keyboard intro? Bum, 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 bum. Jump.
Jump.
The phrasing on the guitar solo in Jump is really interesting.
Yep. Oh yeah, and that's. I mean, it's such a loss that we lost Eddie. I mean, it's Yeah. So anyway, he's another great drummer.
Yeah, for sure, man.
So many, Jim. There's so many cats now, and with YouTube and everything, there's so much stuff out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Nate Smith. I've been digging the guy from Corey Wong. Corey Wong.
Yeah.
His Patar or something is Minneapolis Cats. I mean, they're so killing. It's just kind of overwhelming, I'm just trying to let me just give me a 2 and 4 in pocket, and I'm happy.
Well, that's I love like what Adam Deitch is doing now, because he's got a new group that they just dropped something today that I saw on like Instagram or something. But they're doing like real retro. I mean, he's always done kind of the retro thing with Lettuce and everything. But this new group, I can't remember the name of it right now, but look up on Adam Deitch's Instagram page. He's got this new thing going, horns, like real 70s, like soul. It's very cool, man.
I'm into that. And funny thing about Adam, I got to tell you the story. When Adam was 12 years old, I used to do this steady gig with the ex-keyboard player from Spyro, Jeremy Wall.
Okay.
This gig in Piermont. No, it might have been Piermont in New York, right over the Tappan Zee Bridge. And Adam comes from a musical family. His parents are both drummers too.
Ah.
And they brought Adam. He's 12, and I set up a little chair for him. He's a little kid, and he sat behind me for these gigs. And it's like the little kid Adam Deitch, and who knew? I didn't know he was going to become Adam Deitch.
Wow.
It's just it's crazy. We were laughing about that a little while ago. He's killer.
Yeah,
and
he's
he
great.
He had the Schofield gig. He killed the Schofield gig, the Uber Jam stuff.
Yeah.
So freaking talented in his pocket. I mean, he's just great.
His feel is so great. He was on the show, and his mom and his dad were on the show remotely with him,
awesome.
Like from their house. So I brought them in on a conference thing, and his mom plays drums really great. His dad's a great musician. So funny, man. Dude, this was such a fun hang tonight.
Thanks, Jim.
And I appreciate you being so generous with your time. I know I've probably kept you long enough.
It's all good.
But super fun hang. I love going down sort of music rabbit holes with people and talking about a lot of alignment in the things that we were listening to. So that always makes it extra special. But I also want to mention, Tama drums for you, Zildjian cymbals, Vic Firth, LP,
Remo,
ADH mics.
ADK
mics, I mean.
Yep.
So shout out to all the companies for sure.
Yep. I've been with Tama since '86.
Wow. Oh my God.
And it's they're a great company. I was never one of, I got offered many times to switch companies, and I never wanted to be that guy.
Right.
That's kind of floating around. It just dilutes everybody's opinion.
Yeah.
And as long as Tama was, they're very high level drums. I mean, I'm not wanting for a better instrument.
Right.
There's no reason. They've been really great with me, as with all the companies.
I will say, all my drums are Tama. I'm not signed with Tama, but all my drums are like back there, Maple Star Classics, Star Classic Performer for my students, an exact replica of that kit packed up for gigs and touring, another Maple Star Classic in trunks in my storage. And I just love those drums. And I've actually had opportunities to sign with a drum company that I won't mention, but I don't do it because I love playing these drums. So,
and let me say one other thing about Tama, because I have lots of kits, but the kit that I gig with is the Silver Star.
Nice.
Which is their like student kit, sort of like, but the reason I use it is because it's light. Yeah,
real lightweight. They sound amazing.
Their birch kit. It's a birch kit. You put the right heads and tune them up. The bass drum is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff, man. The student kits now, like when we were growing up, you either had like a Gretsch Ludwig or something, and then everything else was from Japan when it was like really junk.
Right.
But now the shittiest student kit is absolutely playable.
Definitely.
I mean, you can gig with it. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. All of the Tama entry level stuff sounds incredible. Up to the top stuff. It was never that way when I was a kid, but other drum companies make decent entry level kits, but I would say that the Tama stuff, because I have students that play the Silver Stars also on their gig kits, and they always sound great. So
that's great. You just got to know, again, going back to what we said in the first 10 minutes, you got to know how to tune the drums.
Right.
You got to know what heads to use and how to get the most out of them.
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing. And then everything else is cake after that.
So Sam, if you're listening, since I'm playing at PASIC in November, I will be playing on a Tama kit, whether Tama brings one for me or not. So if I have to drive my kit to Indianapolis, I'll do it. Cool. So, man, such a fun hang. We're gonna wrap it up, kids. So if there's any follow-up questions, just let me know, and I'll try to get things answered for you guys. But I appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat, and super fun hanging with you, Joel. And of course, if you need any technology advice, let me know anytime.
I'm definitely gonna do that. I'm definitely gonna. We'll stay in touch. Let me get this computer here, and then I really would love you to come up here. So maybe we can figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, that would be killer. That would be super, super fun. So I'm going to run the closing titles. Everybody, thanks for hanging out tonight. And Jason Gianni, when you're on the show, in here, on my lap, facing me.
Nice meeting you, and thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you again. Thanks.
All right, everybody.